Hey, it's Aaron, Metal Theologian. I might show one or two metal records at the end today, but it's mostly going to be non-metal today, because today I'm going to talk about Bob Seger. This is a very special video just for Bananas over at a Grown Man Record Night. I have him in the background just so you don't forget who this video is dedicated to. Because there are a lot of Bob Seger fans in the community, but none can hold a candle to Mikey Bananas. So, yeah, what we're listening to, though, because I figure if I try and play any Bob Seger, I mean, that shit's on a label, so that'll totally get an ad put on this. But, I have a soft spot for Jesus music, before it sort of turned into CCM, which was kind of awful in the 80s and since. This is one that I came across not too long ago. It looks like it's from, it looks like it was pressed in Cincinnati, so I don't know where they're from, but, yeah, it's the Four Corner Gospel Experience. Although on the label it says Mike and John Reed, so I'm actually not quite sure what the band is. The band, as it were. But, I kind of love this, man. It's kind of mellow and kind of, dreamy, but it kind of rocks in some parts, too. And, for some reason, I really like the drummer on this record. Like, there isn't much that I can specifically point to about it. Like, on the next song that rocks a little bit more, it's like he does this really sort of standard fill in these really obvious places, but the way he does it, it sort of becomes a part of the drum pattern, and I don't know, man. I just kind of dig it, so. Yeah, you'll hear it in a minute. Yeah, but I want a little Bob Seger kick today, man. Listen to all my Bob Seger records. And, it's one I don't talk about that much because I kind of tend to take him for granted. But, when the urge hits me, I really love these records. So, we're going to talk about some of them today. And I'll tell you right now, I don't really have anything after, I have everything up until 7, because that was the first record that I just thought was kind of lame. And then after that with the big hits, I mean, I really don't need shit like a rock. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't begrudge Bob for, wanting to make money and actually have a music career as opposed to just starving to death. But, that shit just isn't really for me, In fact, I'll start with, This one, I don't even remember where this came from. I actually pulled this out of my Maloney stack to listen to again today. But, this is the only later Bob Seger record that I have. By which I mean it's the only one with the Silver Bullet Band. And, I don't know, man. Honestly, I think it's not terrible. I just think a lot of the stuff is kind of boring. And my favorite songs on here are all earlier songs on some of the records I'm going to show, Turn the Page and Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, heavy music. I like Kathmandu. That's good. Looking Back, even Get Out of Denver, I think is kind of, I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on me one of these days because I just feel like this record should be really hot, because when Bob Seger in this era was, just starting to get really successful and shit, and I would hope that this record would really be sort of fire, and it's just kind of not. At least not to my ears. Actually, I'm not going to go in the order they came out. I'm just going to go in the order that I feel like talking about them because why the hell not? And out of the ones that I have, this is probably the second weakest one. I'm just taking another look here to see what I've got, make sure they're all out. Because everything's a mess over here, of course. Yeah, this is the one, if there's one that I have that I really kind of want to like, but just have trouble really enjoying very much, it's this one, Mongrel. It's gotten harder to find in recent years, but it was pretty easy to find for a long time. And if you come across it now, it's not that expensive. These early ones all seem to be out of print, and have been out of print for a long time. The ones that are actually kind of hard to find are Noah, Back in 72, and especially Brand New Morning. But this one seems to have been out of print for kind of a long time now, too, and I don't know, I mean, the only song on this one that I hear people talking about as far as standing out is Lucifer. That's a pretty good song. Highway Child is a pretty good song. I just listened to that again because it's a B-side, too. But it also has that long-ass cover of River Deep Mountain High on it. And, I don't know, man. I just don't think it adds very much. I feel like this album just sort of doesn't go anywhere. And I think part of it's just the production. It sounds kind of weak. And that, so, it's not a terrible record. It's not bad. I mean, I'm going to leave it out. I'll probably listen to it again before I put it away. But it's not up to the standard of some of the really great ones, And so we're going to talk about some of these. This is the drum pattern thing I was talking about, by the way. Like that fill comes in the same spot in the verse, or it's at the end of the line in the same way. It almost becomes part of the pattern, you know? Like it's really kind of not brilliant drumming, but it just does it for me. Anyway, back to Bob. You know, speaking of River Deep, Mountain High, I'll show this one next, because I like Bob enough that I went out and sought out the Cameo Parkway singles. So this one, Heavy Music, I mean, this song is actually on that Live Bullet record, too. And I don't really think it redeems Live Bullet, but it's a pretty good song. It's not an incredible song. It's Heavy Music Part 1 and Part 2. Heavy Music Part 2 kind of feels like an afterthought to Part 1. I mean, it's fine. It's like a full thought. It's not just like a fragment. But it kind of just feels like a continuation, sort of like the way it says, you know. So it's really just, you know, you're kind of just getting one song on this single. And it's not bad, but what kind of bothers me about it actually is that it sounds like River Deep, Mountain High, the do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do, like the way it sort of goes into that groove. It's not identical, but it really sounds like they were listening to that. And I'm sorry, but Ike and Tina Turner's River Deep, Mountain High, produced by Phil Spector, you just can't beat that. You know what I mean? And I think Bob Seger is a great singer. But he's just a different... he's not Tina Turner, you know? It's just the wrong voice for a great song, you know? I thought Deep Purple's cover of River Deep, Mountain High was even worse, so... we sort of set that as the bar. I mean, I love Deep Purple, right? But that's really one of the low points on the Book of Taliesin. So, yes, that's the first Bob Seger single we're going to show tonight. Let's see. Well, let's stick with the singles for now. Here's another one that's sort of, I would have preferred an extra song to what you get, which is just an instrumental version, but East Side Story, East Side Sound. East Side Sound is really just an instrumental version of East Side Story. But it's a pretty cool song, man, with this early band, The Last Herd. I like this one better than Heavy Music. I just feel like it has more sort of personality. It definitely sounds like a product of the 60s. You know, I mean, look at that, like that old like factory sleeve and shit. It's kind of awesome. You gotta love it, you know? Yeah, and you know, I want to say, normally the record like this, I sort of want to say, I can see why he sort of dropped it, but this is a good song, man. He could have kept doing this into the 70s and that. I don't know, I really don't quite understand why he dropped all his early, or so much of his earlier repertoire when he got bigger. So, yeah, on that note though, let's go on to this one. This is the first one that I pulled out today. This is totally a favorite. I would love this copy's kind of rough. I actually bought this from someone on the street in San Francisco. So the bottom of the cover is kind of water damaged, but I paid like nothing for this thing, so. And, yeah, so anyway, so there's a couple covers on it too, like Midnight Rider. And I've Been Working. It also has, I mean, back in 72, the title track is great, though. Turn the Page is great. I could kind of do without that sax. But I don't know, it's kind of hard to take it away from it, too, because it's kind of part of the song, you know? I just sort of like that 70s AOR sax kind of creeping in there. But it also has one of my very favorite Seger songs, which is Rosalie. In fact, I kind of decided that I really didn't care for Thin Lizzy. When I was listening to Fighting one day, I think it's on Fighting where they do that cover. And I was like, man, the best fucking song on this record is the Seger cover. And I'm like, if you need Bob Seger to write the best song on your album, then maybe your album sucks, you know? And it's not because Bob Seger is bad, because Bob Seger is great. There's a good choice for a cover. And Thin Lizzy delivers on it. But, you know, I kind of want you to have your own songs if I'm going to be a fan of your band, you know? See, even songs, though, like So I Wrote You a Song, it's like kind of schmaltzy and sentimental, but I don't know, man. It just works for me anyway. You know, Bob writes some really good ballads. Yeah, actually, an example of a ballad that's maybe not quite as great, but is still pretty charming is Very Few, which is the B-side of this Vagrant Winter single. It's another one of the Cameo Parkway ones. And, yeah, Very Few is kind of schmaltzy and kind of, It's so mellow, it's almost not there. But yeah, but Vagrant Winter rocks, man. Like the keys change in weird places that aren't quite expected. It keeps it interesting, and it has this drive. You know, Bob Seger, I feel like at his very best, has this sort of tone where he's singing, and even though he's like really sort of working when he's singing, he's sort of like delivering it right to you too. You know what I mean? And Vagrant Winter is a really good example of that. That sort of urgency that he brings into his singing style. You know. Actually, one of the very best examples of that kind of singing style is the last song on this record, "Death Row," on Noah. This is probably a boot. This one, I had an original once upon a time, but I let it go on Hard Times, and you know, it's funny because this is like the second record, and I can kind of understand why he wants to forget about this one because on the back it says the Bob Seger System 5 because of 5-piece. The first album was trio. This album is more in many respects. It's more sound, it's more guts, it's more soul, and it's more conflict. There we go. Conflict between two very different types of music. Side 1 is Bob Seger, moody, dynamic, human. Side 2 is influenced by Tom Neame, whoever the fuck that is. A new and important addition to the system. It is this influence that is creating change. Seger will always be Bob Seger. Any change must come from the system and Tom Neame. Like, if I were Bob Seger, I wouldn't be very happy about those fucking liner notes, you know what I mean? So giving this Tom Neame clown all the fucking credit. And, you know, I don't want to shit all over Tom Neame, because he probably didn't write that himself. And some of his songs on this record are pretty good, too, like Jumpin' Hip Hypocrite, not bad. Follow the Children is definitely pretty corny. Lenny Johnson, I can hang with. Paint Them a Picture, Jane. And even some of the other ones that are sung by Seger, like Loneliness is a Feeling, or Intravenous Eyes is written by Bob Seger. My mistake. But still, the very best songs on this one are some of Seger's best performances. Like, I love the song Noah. Absolutely great. And Death Row, the last song, like I said, is that sort of urgency. I mean, it really sort of leaves you wanting more at the end of this record. Cat is just like this weird sort of... It's as close to like a weird, like, jammy freak out as Seger ever got. Which means it's not like a weird jammy freak out, but it sort of operates on a similar sort of level. Yeah, and Intravenous Eyes is good, Lonely Man is good, and that's another Tom Neame song. This record really isn't bad at all. Like, the good parts on this record are great. And the bad parts, I mean, I'm not getting up and moving the needle forward. You know, they're not that bad. It's not like a rock, you know? Maybe Tom Neame wrote that one. I like to blame that shit on him, that's for sure. Actually, that isn't such a bad song either. It's just the fucking, it's the car commercial. It's just like that old-time rock and roll. That's not really such a bad song. It's Risky Business that made that song so fucking heinous, you know? And again, that's where I have to go, you know, on the one hand, I hate it. On the other hand, would I do something different if someone offered me a huge pile of money to have Tom Cruise dancing around to my song? I mean, I'd probably take the money, being honest, you know? All right. So, we're down to the last ones here. This one is probably my favorite of the Cameo Parkway singles, and I saved it for last on purpose. Persecution Smith is this weird song with like this really like extremely high like guitar intro. It's just like 2 notes or something, but it just sounds crazy the way it's played. It's really fast and really sort of urgent. And the way he sings this, he kind of sounds like he owes a fair bit to Bob Dylan. Like, it's sort of a storytelling style, and the way he delivers the lines is kind of Dylan-ish. But I think I like this song more than anything Bob Dylan ever wrote. I mean, there's some contenders in the Dylan catalog, you know, let's just go there. But this is a fun one. It's a cool little obscuro because, you know, this isn't exactly one of his biggest hits. As far as I know, the single didn't go anywhere, at least not outside of Michigan. And yeah, Persecution Smith is awesome. And the B-side on this one, Chain Smokin', is kind of more laid back. It's not like a blues, but it's sort of delivered in kind of a bluesy style, like with that kind of a groove and that sort of a swagger and sort of, you know, that sort of affect. It's really great. I mean, go check this shit out. If you don't listen to anything else I talk about in this video, listen to Persecution Smith and Chain Smoking, because the single's really kind of a low key face melter, and yeah, and it's great, man. So this is the last one of the singles. This one's already a little bit later because this is the Looking Back single on Capitol. Again, another one that's on Live Bullet, but you know, I like the original version better. So this is the studio version with the Capitol sleeve too. I'm kind of stoked about that. The B-side is just Highway Child. It even says it's from the album Mongrel, and it's funny because it sounds so much less strong and interesting than Looking Back. But this is really this is really a great song, man. Again, like a great sort of shuffle to it, a great swagger, and yeah, and clearly, you know, this one hung around for a while too. So it's funny, it has the intro there. So if you're, and then the totals. So if you're a DJ, you can talk over the intro like a tool, you know, if that's your inclination. Oh, I forgot I have 2 more albums here. Alright, so as far as which one of these is my favorite, it's pretty close between this one right here, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, probably the best known one in this stack here, and actually his first album. I think this whole record is fantastic. I really do. Like, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man is the big song. 2 + 2 = question mark, whatever that, however they say that, is, was I guess the first single that didn't do too well. But I really think all the album tracks on this are good. Train Man is a favorite song of mine. I mean, that song brings a tear to my eye. It's so good, you know. Sort of like the original River Deep Mountain High. But you can leave that to one side. Down Home is a great song. Yeah, Tales of Lucy Blue. This whole thing, I mean, this record probably more than any of the full album, he has that sort of urgent kind of delivery. And, yeah, he's a great singer. It's just a really good rock and roll band with this stuff, too. And the organ is great on this, too. In fact, it's funny, because Seger plays the organ on a lot of this. You never really hear about him in that context. But, yeah, he played that as well as guitar. And actually, where that really shows is on the record that might just be my favorite Bob Seger record. And that's actually this one, man. Brand New Morning. So this record is really all acoustic. I mean, I'm pretty sure this record is just Bob Seger. Like, and he plays, you know, piano or guitar on the songs. But the song Brand New Morning, I don't know, man. I get into certain moods where I just, like, need a dose of this, you know? It sort of feels like a brand new morning, but it feels intimate, too, you know? Like, almost more like a brand new evening, you know? Yeah, Railroad Days is great. Maybe Today is great. This record just captures like a certain sort of mood, and it's really sort of unique among his records for that. And again, it's funny that this one's never been reissued because it's really distinctive, you know. I saw there was this old ad that I've seen pictures of online that had like this is the next one after Mongrel, I guess, and it said something like Bob Seger's last record was Mongrel. Some people thought it was a bitch, so the next record must be a son of a bitch. Instead, it's a brand new morning. I was like, that kind of captures it in a way, you know? Because even though he doesn't have the same sort of like, you know, talking right to you like that sort of like singing right in your ear, sort of like urgency with this one still feels, it feels really personal, you know what I mean? This one, like, I feel like this one really speaks to me in a really sort of specific way. And it's not because of the lyrics, which I don't really pay any attention to. It's just the music. It's the way the songs are crafted and the way they're delivered. And, yeah, just an awesome record, man. Yeah, I would take this over any of Bob Dylan's acoustic records. And that's not a joke. Now, in fairness, I've heard those Dylan records 100 times, right? But yeah, I'm here to champion Brand New Morning by Bob Seger because it's a great fucking record. And, there aren't a lot of people out there championing it that I can see. You know, it's sort of looked at, even by people who know it, I think people sort of write it off as like this curio of a record that Bob doesn't like anymore. And I think it's a lot more than that. All right, so that's all my Bob Seger records. I'll show a couple other things I've been listening to lately just for the hell of it. I pulled this out, man. Speaking of go-to records, this is one of those that comes out every so often, you know? I just get these songs in my head and then I've got to listen to the record, like the trombone on Tradition. As like an example of the little things in this one that's great. Also, I can't show this record without mentioning the fact that there's a song on it called Marcus Garvey, and there's another song called Old Marcus Garvey. I mean, Burning Spear has my eternal love for that alone, you know? But yeah, every song on this is great. Slavery Days is awesome. The Invasion is fantastic. This just has everything you want in a reggae record. It has that sort of groove. It has, it sounds pretty good. The performances are awesome. It's tight, but the singing isn't too tight. In fact, the singing is kind of sloppy, you know, in a way that just, you know, lifts this above. Like if this thing were sung like the way the Mighty Diamonds sing, the way it's perfect, it would actually bring it down a little bit. Like that little bit of sloppiness, that little bit of maybe not completely in tuneness, that makes this record fucking just brilliant. You know, absolute genius. Man, here's another one. I found this at a shop here in town recently. I loved this band when I was in high school, and like, I kind of got sick of it because I thought they were corny. I'm talking about King Kurt, of course, right? And like, just the whole like comedy thing about it, the whole cornball thing, like, but when I got to be like 20 or something like that, I was kind of done with that. I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I really need, you know, Rockin' Kurt or like Destination Zululand and shit like that anymore. But I don't know. I saw this recently and I was like, you know, I've really come back around the Meteors too, whom I also loved at the time. I mean, I love the fucking Meteors. I was like, maybe I should give King Kurt another chance. And this record is really pretty corny for my taste. Yeah, I don't know if I really recommend it, unless you're way into like the whole psychobilly shit. You could handle lots of like goofiness. But I don't know, I guess King Kurt kind of has a special place in my heart anyway, so I gotta tip my hat to him just a little bit. Besides, who the hell else is talking about King Kurt on YouTube? Here's another little curveball for you, because what the hell, man? Fucking, I've been listening to a lot of JPEG Mafia. Like, when I got really into Death Grips, maybe a year ago now, something like that, I was just geeking out over that shit nonstop and not really wanting to hear anything else for a few weeks. I was looking for something similar, and actually a guy at my local shop here recommended JPEG Mafia. And it's not the same. I mean, it doesn't sound like Death Grips, but it does have a similar sort of sense of experimentation to it. You know, there's a lot of weird stuff. I mean, I know like this much about, you know, newer hip-hop. I know this much about classic, like 90s hip-hop too, for that matter. But I know even less about like modern hip-hop. So maybe there's more shit like that out there and I'm just ignorant. But I really appreciate the way, just the atmosphere he creates with this stuff. Rather than just sort of being a straight-ahead beat, there's this more sort of experimental aspect to it, you know? Sort of weird stuff. And then, like, he raps with these weird-ass sort of background rhythms and that. And I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I know this guy's catalog that well, but, yeah, these are they're very recent reissues. I got that one and this one. I kind of love them both. I think I like LP more than, this one, but I like the title, All My Heroes Are Cornballs, better. That's words to live by right there, man. So yeah, fucking JPEG Mafia's been playing a lot over at the Metal Theologian House. And what the hell, man? Let's close this out with a metal one. Because if you're watching this right now, you're probably thinking, what the fuck am I watching? So here's a metal one, and I'm kind of want to bring this to y'all's attention because it has a really kind of a crappy cover. I mean, that looks like, I don't know, man, it makes you think of like Cowboys from Hell or something like that, but like, not because it looks like it would sound like that, it looks like a Southern rock record, the same way that Cowboys from Hell looks like a Southern rock record, you know, even though it's not. And this isn't either. This is a pretty solid metal record. I mean, it's on an independent label, so that gives you a little bit of a hint, you know, and it's 86, so it's kind of right in that sort of golden era, you know. But this record with that kind of a cover, it could have been glam, it could have been, you know, one of these, like, second half of the 80s, like, bands that wanted to be a blues rock band, really, you know, like, I don't know, the fucking Black Crowes or something like that. And since it's a really weird, it's not a really weird metal record, but it's a solid metal record that really kind of has its own sound, too. Like, I was trying to think of who I would compare these guys to when I was listening to it earlier, and I was having a hard time coming up with comparison points. But it's still a really easily listenable record, you know what I mean? The songs really deliver, they really sort of hit home, and I mean, fuck it, I'll throw it on for now. That one's indie, so that one probably won't get me an ad on this video. I'm a little pissed about the Bob Seger thing, because I made a video. I mean, this has happened a lot of times since, but the first time I noticed it happening was with Bob Seger. I made a video where I played, like, one of those early 45s or something like that. And then, like, and it was up on YouTube. And then, like, a year later, I got a notification saying, oh, hey, we just found that you used our fucking song, so we're going to, like, put an ad on it. I was like, you're a dick, man. If you didn't catch it on the front end, you don't get to go back a fucking year later and, you know, sort of retroactively dick me over like that. I mean, I realize if we're trying to make money off this, it wouldn't really matter because I would make all the money in the first week or whatever, but I'm not making any money off this. Let's just fucking be upfront about that. But just sort of the principle of it, you know, it just felt kind of sleazy. So, like I said, that happens all the time now, so, you know. Anyway, let's throw on a little bit of Siren here. Yeah, No Place Like Home. See, that label looks like it might be something good. You know, Flame Trader. I'm trying to remember what else they put out. I think they were a small label, but I think they were a real label. But yeah, for some reason, the only thing I could think of when I was listening to this earlier was Liege Lord as a comparison point. But they really don't sound like Liege Lord. There's just sort of something about it. Something I can't put my finger on that reminded me of it, you know? And some of the songs have, like, really kind of, you know, straightforward hooks, so, like, really easily identifiable. But they never sound trite. You know what I mean? Well, listen to that. That's heavy, you know? That's a lot heavier than this looks. And then, sort of the weirder songs on this one are just really kind of unique, you know? They really kind of have their own sound. I think this band made another record after this one, Siren. I don't know. I have to figure that shit out. Anyway, it's a good band, man, so don't snooze on Siren. If you see this thing around, you go, that looks like it's probably a piece of shit. I'm going to save my $20. No, spend your $20. If it's $50, then, you know, then it's up to you. But if it's $20, grab this shit. It's really good, isn't it? Fuck, man, I might as well show this too. I played this a lot last week. I still come back to Blue Oyster Cult, like, kind of a lot, man. Like, so much so that, sometimes I go, man, I can't talk about Blue Oyster Cult again on my fucking channel. I've done it so many times. Yeah, here's another one that I played recently, too. Nahuatl. Great heavy rock. This is a heavy rock band from Mexico. I remember when I was getting into this Mexican shit, I would tell people, I've been listening to a lot of Mexican bands. They're like, like mariachi shit. I'm like, no, like fucking hard rock from Mexico. It's great. And this is one of my very favorites. So if you see this bad boy around, jump on it. This is a reissue. Of course, originals are rare. It does have a couple bonus tracks on it, which, as usual, I could do without, but none of it's, like, bad, you know? But yeah, this is another one of those bands, though, where it's like they'll have like a really heavy song like Machismo or Contaminacion. But then they'll have like a more sort of tuneful kind of ballady one like No Sé Quién Soy or Watching the Sun Go Down, which for some reason is the only one that has it's sung in English on this record. And those songs are just as listenable as the other ones, so. Absolutely fantastic record. And if you're into like Mexican hard rock, keep an eye out for that series Hot Rock like thing on there, because the rap records with that are generally pretty fucking good, man. El Ritual comes to mind. Ciruela comes to mind. Yeah. So there we go. How's that for a little left turn at the end there? It went from Seger to Mexico. Like I went from north, like Michigan, to south. And we did it by way of a really good metal record that we'll snooze on. So there we go. I'm going to change the subject again if I keep going, so we're going to call it right now. Thanks for watching. Do appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.